Hello, welcome, and namaste. Our special guest speaker was called a top career thought leader, an original shark, Kevin Herrington from TV Shark Tank. Despite being a strong introvert, falling asleep during first ever interview, and being the first generation in his family to graduate from college, he has gone onto the leading both a startup and Fortune 100 team across multiple countries with 1 billion in strategical responsibilities. He has helped tens of thousands of job seekers to find better job from fresh college graduates to all the way up to the C-suite executives. He has been a paid speaker at university around the world, including University of Maryland, Purdue, and IIT India, Delhi. And he has spent 24 years interviewing thousands of successful senior executives to research what does it take to work in career success, including job search. He's the CEO of Career Success and Secret. I am excited to have Mike Tomasello to this podcast. Mike, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here.
Mike, let's jump into this. Why did you start Career Success Secret?
Yeah, I had gotten to a point in my career where I had a lot of success. I had worked in a variety of different departments. I had been promoted numerous times. I had led large teams internationally. And I had gotten to a point in my career where I felt I had accomplished the goals that I wanted to accomplish. And I have always been really motivated by simply making the largest difference in the world that I possibly could. And so when I took a step back and I said, where can I really make a difference? And what am I good at? And where do I have knowledge and expertise where I don't think enough people have it? I kept coming back to career success and job search success.
That's awesome. And then I know I've changed 5, 7 jobs in my career. I know what's the difference it make to figuring out everything by yourself or having somebody on your side. So Mike, how do you help your client step up their game what they could not do themselves?
Yeah. So most people deep down are capable of doing a lot of these things on their own. However, there is a specific area of expertise that I have a tremendous amount of experience in that the average person doesn't. So one, I've been both an external recruiter as well as an internal recruiter. So I've been a headhunter and worked for multiple clients and had to go out and seek people. And then I've also done internal recruiting at my particular company. Now, some coaches and some job search teachers have that expertise. But what makes me different is I've actually been promoted in my career. I've actually led large teams in my career. And so I look at things from a recruiter perspective. I look at things from a hiring manager perspective, which, believe it or not, are different. And then last but not least, I look at things from a sales and marketing perspective, where I have a tremendous amount of expertise. And so I have gone out and tested what works, what doesn't work thousands and thousands of times. And I've figured out that small shifts in language, small shifts in technique can have a tremendous impact. So I take an engineering approach to tackling a problem and figuring out how we can re-engineer it to make ourselves more successful.
Yeah. And I have attended, if you don't know, if you're listening to this podcast and if you don't know this, tune into one of the space which Mike joined. The hunt is, you will always find Mike there. But in the spaces, one of the things that I have heard is how you can uplift your resume, how to basically talk about what you have done and how you can help the company, what and then adding some numbers around it. So I wanted to ask your tips around how can somebody uplift their resume by adding or emphasizing the project that they have done.
Yeah, I have tons of tips. So you can always tell me if I'm not giving you enough or if I'm giving you too much. But one tip that is really unconventional that you almost never hear, but that you need to hear is that step one is always clarity. Step one is always clarity. So what do I mean by that? One of the biggest misconceptions about a resume or a CV is that it is simply a legal history of everything that you've ever done in your career. That used to be true 20 years ago, and some people are still teaching old stuff from 20 years ago, but that's not really true today. Today, your resume or your CV is a marketing document, which is specifically designed to get you one type of position. And so if you don't know what your next step is, then your resume is not going to resonate with the person that you're trying to reach. You need to be clear on what is that ideal next job title for you? What is that ideal next industry or type of company for you? And then you're going to rewrite. Now, a lot of the structure might stay the same. A lot of the positions obviously aren't going to be too different, but the bullet point and what type of content that you emphasize is going to be different depending on what your next goal is. And that's actually similar advice that I would give for anything in your career. So if you're feeling stagnant in your career or you're feeling unhappy in your career, it's probably because you've lost sight or you haven't made a decision around what is your next step. What is that next thing that you want? Going back to some other resume tips. So we want to tell a story. We want to tell a narrative about why you're a great fit for the next position. So the second resume tip I would give you is, have you analyzed multiple job descriptions for that ideal next job title and industry that you want? Because even if they have the same exact job title, different positions are looking for slightly different things. They might overlap in terms of their job duties, but when you really analyze job description after job description, you're going to see that there are trends in terms of what are 3 to 5 job duties or responsibilities that are more important for the type of hiring manager that you're trying to reach. And this will also vary by culture and some other things that you might be looking for in an employer. So when you reword all of that, it really has a tremendous impact in terms of whether or not people think, oh, like I have a really good feeling about him. I have a really good feeling about her. So those are some of the ones that jump out at me, because if you don't do those from the beginning, chances are your resume is just going to look like a random list of things that you've done in your life.
I really love this advice where you started with the clarity. And then instead of making your resume like an inventory of different things that you have done, skills that you have acquired or education, you're making it targeted to the job that you're applying for. And you said specifically that I have these many things, and this is why I am a good fit for this specific job. So I love how you translated everything and not making it, oh, this is all I have, take it, right? Versus you actually analyzing the requirement, job positions, and then presenting yourself as one of the strong candidate. You're doing the job for them to match what you have versus what they want.
Excellent summary. Add on that, or give a brief example on that. So there was a time in my career when I was a sales professional and I actually wanted to switch into marketing. And even though I didn't go out and get a marketing position immediately, I didn't go out and work on a bunch of marketing projects. I went back through my resume line by line and said, is a marketing manager going to care about that bullet point? And if they don't care about that bullet point for the next position that you want, then I would actually consider deleting it, or I would consider rewriting it. And so the other part is language or lingo. It varies. So just like the wording would be different for someone who's speaking Mandarin Chinese versus Cantonese, the language will vary from company to company. And so if you're using acronyms or you're using words that don't really resonate with that person, and you're not switching them and learning about what the proper language is for that next position, then there's going to be that disconnect there.
I will add a topic, slightly sensitive topic to some people. What about these software that scan your resume, and before the hiring manager sees the match and then quality of the resume, these software have a potential to not even allow you to go to the next level, right? So is there any tip where we can be very intentional about the resume and the content that is specific to the job, and to still take care of the basic foundation of these scanner softwares?
Yeah, so a couple out of the box solutions to that. So first of all, if you're trying to skip a step, that is part of the reason why your resume is not getting seen. So I told you to look at multiple job descriptions, analyze them, see what they all have in common. Some people try to skip that step and they'll be like, oh, I'm only going to do one of those. That's part of the reason why you're not necessarily getting seen and getting past that software that you were talking about. Is one, well, they might be searching for a term that wasn't actually in the job description to begin with. But by analyzing multiple job descriptions, you increase the chances that you truly understand what keywords are most important to them. The other piece of advice that I would give you, and the clarity piece also goes directly hand in hand with that. So here's the out of the box thing. If you are updating your resume every single time you're applying for something new, that can take a lot of time, and speed does matter in the job search. Speed does matter. So you can, if you spend 4 or 5 hours redoing your resume every single time, and 10 other people apply that are equally good as you, like, you might not get the interview simply because you took too long. So here's my solution, and it's going to blow some of your mind because it's so simple, but so few people do it, is stop applying online and track down the name of the hiring manager and apply to the hiring manager directly. Find their email, preferably find their email or find their DM, although email works better. And you're going to email your resume to them directly, and you're going to say in an email, or you're going to say in a DM, 2 or 3 sentences about why you're a great fit for the position. You get around getting stuck in a database. You look different because you're not one of the 200 or 2,000 other people that are getting stuck in a database, and you're getting seen by the human being that has the most power to make the decision. So that would be my recommendation to you, but please let me know if you disagree or there's other things you'd like to know about that.
No, I personally agree. And as a hiring manager, I want to find good candidate. And I have personally always speak to my recruiter, internal. So we have internal recruiters in Advent Health who help hiring managers find the candidate. So I always tell them that do not just filter anybody because they don't have XYZ. I'm still interested in just looking at the resume. I'm happy to put some extra effort, because most of the time I'm looking for a candidate who will be there for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and I'm okay to spend some time with them. So if a candidate send me a personalized email matching what I'm looking for and the match and helping me that these are things that they have done that are relevant to my job, I would appreciate it actually.
Yeah. So that technique would work on you.
Definitely will work. And sometimes, because I'm not only looking for technology, I'm looking for a human being who will be part of the team. I take a lot of extra time to find the right candidate who is the best team fit, not the best technical person or a skilled person.
Right.
So yeah, this will be very helpful for me. So we talk about the first step, preparing the resume. Now we're talking about application and finding the right of quick ways. So we talk about finding the emails, finding the hiring managers, and then approaching them through email or DM. And I think some people will have a lot of hesitations in doing something like that. How can we send a DM? They won't even respond to us, XYZ. So I want to take another 30 seconds just to give them confidence that it is okay. It is still able, you can still do it. And there are techniques to do it. For example, one of the things that I tell, if you want to DM somebody, first, don't send hi, send a proper message. And then second, if they are posting something online, let's say in LinkedIn, interact with that first. And once you interact, share, comment, those are the three things that you could do with somebody else post. They see you. And then when you send a DM with proper introduction, there is a high possibility that they will respond. So, Mike, what's your take on that? I know you can give you much better advice than me, but I just wanted to open up with some thoughts, and then I wanted to hand over Mike to you.
Yeah, let me respond to your suggestion first and then circle back and talk about giving people more confidence in terms of this approach and then let me know if I missed anything. So I think your suggestion is fantastic. Absolutely. If this person is posting on LinkedIn and it doesn't have to be LinkedIn, like if for maybe they don't post on LinkedIn and maybe they post on Twitter, if they post on another social media site and their posts are public, interacting with them is a fantastic way for them to start to get your name, which, by the way, is part of the reason why I recommend the email approach. When you are applying in a different method than the way that everyone else is applying, that's when you stand out. When they see your name multiple times, they start to remember your name and be like, huh, I keep seeing her name. There must be a reason for that. Like maybe I should check out her resume. So these additional touch points in marketing and sales, we say the more touch points that you have with someone, the more likely that they are to actually schedule a meeting with you. The more touch points you have with someone, the more likely they are to buy from you. And you might not like thinking about job search as sales or marketing, but it really is. You are convincing them to give you $100,000 in salary plus benefit. You are convincing them to give you $200,000 in salary plus benefits. So if you're not looking at it as that sort of sales equation, then that's part of the reason why you're failing. So I love your technique of interacting with their posts and doing that multiple times, especially if you want to develop a long-term relationship with them, but short-term works as well. So let's switch back to the original thing, and that a lot of people are going to hear reaching out to a hiring manager and not necessarily wanting to do it or being afraid to do it or not feeling confident in doing it. And I would say, how long have you been job searching? Have you been job searching for 3 months, 2 months? And does that feel painful to you? Because for most people, that feels painful. And if you continue to get the same result that you're currently getting, which most people are unhappy with the result they're getting, well, what if your lack of result continues for another 3 months, another 6 months, a year?
Right.
There's some people out of work for a year. And so I would say You can't afford not to try this if you truly want to change your life. Because if you want to get better results than what you're getting now, you have to do something significantly different than what you're doing now, because that's why you're not getting results. Nothing bad is going to happen if you reach out to a hiring manager. Worst case, they don't respond. I have had people do this thousands and thousands of times. I'm not exaggerating on that. I've had people do this thousands and thousands of times. I think we have had one hiring manager, one. So less than less than 0.1% chance that someone is going to respond and be mad at you. And if that happens, let's pretend the worst case does happen. That's probably a sign they weren't going to consider your application to begin with. And so who cares? So a lot of times we think we're avoiding rejection by not reaching out to people, but we're actually increasing the amount of rejection because we're not giving people an opportunity to read an email from us or have a conversation with us through networking or whatever. So by just applying online, you're actually increasing your rejection if you're not doing anything else.
And I will end this topic by sharing one story from a friend. He has worked with me at some point, and he's from the same domain as the company Workday. So at some point, he decided to get into Workday, and he spent, I think, 3-4 months. He had a job, so he was not in rush. But he went to LinkedIn and he started looking for everybody who worked at Workday. Workday is the company. And then he found a couple of people, including the hiring manager, just by searching and in LinkedIn for the company Workday and then trying to make sense. And then, believe it or not, he was able to find the right contact. He was able to use them as a referral, apply to the company, and then got a job in Workday.
That's fantastic.
Real
I love that.
Real story.
That inspires me to share like a couple more quick things. And I promise you that they'll be quick, but they're important.
Take all the time.
So people that apply directly to the hiring manager, as long as the email or the DM is fairly well written, the people that I know that are using this technique are getting somewhere between a 20 to a 40% success rate. Now, you might be like, ooh, 20 to 40% success rate, that feels really low. But if you analyze what the average job searcher is getting by just applying online, if you're just applying online and nothing else, not getting referred in, not doing networking, stuff like that, the average success rate of someone right now is less than 1% for the number of applications. So like 200, you apply for 100 jobs, the average job searcher is getting less than one interview out of 100 applications. So 20%, you are increasing your result by at least 20 times by doing something like that we're talking about. So I love your story. I have countless examples of people that have done this with complete strangers. By the way, this is the one technique that works really well with complete strangers, as long as they're the hiring manager. I have emailed vice presidents, and the vice president forwarded my application to the hiring manager, and I didn't know the vice president. I just thought they might be responsible in the change. And the hiring managers, I had to interview you because the vice president forwarded you my email. I have emailed hiring managers. My clients have emailed hiring managers, and we guessed the wrong person. And they responded anyway and said, hey, that doesn't report to me, but I forwarded it to the hiring manager for you. Now the hiring managers, this person must be good because this person forwarded it to me.
Yep.
I've had situations where me or my clients have emailed someone, we guessed the wrong person, and they said, that position doesn't report to me, but there's this hidden job that I haven't even posted yet, that might be a good fit for you. Would you be interested? So even if you have a little bit of bad luck, you can have tremendous amount of success by doing this.
This is incredible examples, incredible discussions, right? It's becoming it. We are turning this into a masterclass. So anybody who's watching, so let's shift it to referrals. And that's where we will talk about referrals, networking, so much. So we touch referral in some of the way by reaching out to hiring managers or building the contact, but there's a lot you could do just tapping into your existing network or existing sources. So let's first talk about referral, why referrals are so important, what it does in your job applications. So we will start with that, and then we'll tap into how to get more referrals and find more referrals.
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind, and then feel free to ask me some follow-up questions to make sure that I cover what you want to cover. So the reason why referrals are so important is in North America, so United States and Canada, the average job in North America receives a minimum of 300 applications per position. 300. That the average company. So that can be a smaller company that you have not necessarily ever heard of before. If you want to apply for the large, well-known company in your area or in your country, it doesn't have to be a Disney, it doesn't have to be a Google or a Microsoft or whatever, but it could be. If you're applying to those super desirable companies in your area or your industry, chances are the average job is receiving 3,000 or more applications for those roles. So that goes back to that job search mass percentages that I was talking about earlier. Like, the only way to get around that is if you're doing stuff that's different. So if you're just going in the database, no matter how amazing your resume is, it's very unlikely that they are going to spend a significant amount of time on every single resume in the database. 3,000 is a lot, or 200 is a lot. By being referred in, you jump to a shorter list of people that are going to be considered no matter what. They're going to spend more time on your resume because you were referred in. So that's the reason, that's the rationale. And then where would you like me to go from here? Because referrals is a really big topic.
One thing that I wanted to add here is referral does not mean that you will get the job. Referral means you will guaranteed an interview. Not guaranteed, but higher chance of getting an interview. You still have to perform and do all the due diligence and whatever is needed. But what we're talking here is referral to secure interview, and then you perform there. Yeah, we can go to any direction. If I have to suggest, I will suggest how to find referrals.
Yeah. So before we jump to how to find referrals, let's talk about what a good referral looks like, because I think this is where a lot of people get stuck. So a lot of people think, oh, referral, let me just find a random person that works at the company and they'll forward my resume or they'll mark me as an employee referral and I've done my job and I'm going to get an interview. That is better than doing nothing else, but those aren't really effective referrals. So one, ideally we want to be referred in by someone that has influence over the hiring manager. So if it's someone who's a complete stranger to the hiring manager, they're going to have less influence over. And so in situations like that, especially if your network's a little bit smaller or you're living in a new city, you might start out with someone that worked in finance, but you want to work in software development or software engineering. You might actually want to get that person to introduce you to someone that works more closely with the software engineering team. then just have them apply for you. Because if that person doesn't work anywhere close to the department, their referrals is going to have very little influence over the decision. Because especially at a larger company like a Google, Disney, doesn't have to be a name brand like that. It can just be a really big company. Some of them get hundreds of referrals. Some of them get hundreds of referrals. So I was talking to a friend of mine over at Google, and he's, hey, in the past year, I've referred in 30 different people. Only 2 of them got interviews. And I said, what's the difference between the 2 that got interviews and the rest of them? And he said to me, the difference was I actually knew the people, I actually knew the 2 people that got interviews much better. Like I had a conversation with them. I had a good feeling about them. And so that led to the person referring people in to actually write a nice note to the hiring manager, to write a nice note to the recruiter. If you're just having a random stranger that you've never talked to on the phone, it's going to bear a lot less weight when so many other people are doing it. So normally the question I get asked at this point is, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. And I don't know if I want to do it but here's the cool thing. It's not a heck of a lot of work. You're just adding one additional step, and it's a fairly quick step. So instead of asking people to just refer, hey, can you refer me? Can you forward my resume? Not like a very relationship building app. Instead say, hey, I'd love to get your advice. Can we jump on the phone for 20 minutes? You can build a really strong relationship with someone, sometimes, not all the time, in 20 minutes. And then if they enjoy the conversation, if they enjoy meeting you, if they think if they can tell you're smart, then they're much more likely to be able to send a note to the hiring manager or the recruiter talking about, hey, I spoke to this guy. He asked really smart questions. I think you should interview him. Notice I didn't say anything about, I just met this guy. Notice I didn't say anything about, I have people that have done this thousands and thousands of times and got high quality referrals with someone that they only spoke to for 20 minutes. So that would be my overall explanation of what's a better referral. And that's my brief version of how you might go about getting one.
Now let's think about the people you already know for some time, and you may not know or realize that they could be one of the great referrals. And the 2 ways it work is the people you know, and then the people they know.
Yeah.
And this is where we will go into many directions, but I wanted to start by sharing a couple of examples from my personal life. When I got interviewed and hired by 5th largest company in India, it's called Patni Computer. So at that time, it was the 5th largest company. And the way I was able to get in, because I built a relationship with someone in the company that I was working prior. So this other person was there. We worked on 2 projects together. We built the relationship. And when he joined this company, he has no hesitation referring me, plus advocating for me to entire company, like hiring manager as well as the interview panel. So I got a very good entry there, right? Because before I went in, I already have some kind of perception made for me.
I love it.
And then twice, I had somebody worked with me in the first company when I was hired in Patni Computers. About 6 months later, this person shown interest in joining Patni. So I referred him. And then probably 4 years later, when I joined Advent Health, Then I asked him, do you want to come? And I referred him. And the very first line was, when I was referring to, I was only there for 3 months. I built some reputation within 3 months. And I said, this person has worked with me in 2 companies. I vouch for him.
Yeah.
He's perfect for this job. And he was in. So we worked in 3 companies together. My point with that is the people who you work with in your full-time job, they can come back and refer you at different situations. So one of my value is I don't lose connection with anybody who I work with or are connected. So that would be, so let's start from there. Those are really good referrals, the people who you have worked with, and then who they know, because there is higher chances that they may not be in Amazon, but they may know 2 other people who are in Amazon. And these people can vouch to them and introduce you so that you get really quality referral in Amazon, even though you don't know directly.
I love the fact that you brought that up. It's such a fantastic and important conversation to be having. The people that know and trust you are going to be the people that have the most potential to give you the most powerful referrals. Now, sometimes people are like, oh, I'm early in my career, or, oh, I worked at a place and it ended badly or whatever. So a couple of things that I would say to those people. One, you don't have to have a great relationship with everyone to have an effective network or build an effective network. Not everybody that refers you has to be an old boss. Your coworkers that have the same exact job title as you or similar job titles as you that are at the same level as you, they have the power to give you just as great referrals. And we live in a world where it's very rare that someone's going to stay. I think it's near impossible to stay at the same company your entire career. Mm-hmm. And so your ex-coworkers brainstorm the people that you used to work with, because chances are your old coworkers probably work at least 15 to 20 different companies, even if your career's been short. So that's one thing I would say to people. The other thing I would say to people that are earlier in your career is don't discount the people that know and trust you in a non-work capacity. So your relatives, even if they don't work in your fields, you never know who your relatives that don't work in your field might know. So I always give the example of my sister doesn't work in tech. My sister's actually a massage therapist, but she's a massage therapist in San Francisco. And her clients work in tech. Her friends work in tech. Her husband works in tech. She knows, she might not even realize it, but I know because I stalk her connections on LinkedIn. She knows vice presidents at influential companies all across the country. And if I discounted my sister or I said, hey, I'm not, so talking to the people that you do know and saying, hey, I'm looking to meet people in tech. Who do you know that I can get some advice from? I'm looking to meet people that work in software engineering. So when you start having those conversations with people in terms of who do you want to meet, what do you want to learn more about, you'll be amazed, especially if you're connecting with them on LinkedIn. Then you can search through their connections because you might be able to figure out who they know faster than they can. Your ability to expand your network is unlimited. And we haven't even talked about if you have a degree, then you have university, military service, then anyone that's ever been in the same military as your country. Those people are part of your network. So there's so many different things we could talk about. It's crazy.
Yeah, Mike, one of the things that you shared with me some time ago is for a freshers or even 3 years of experience, that they may not have a lot of online context, but they have a treasure that they can open, like their university and local. So I wanted to ask you to share that, how somebody can take all the resources from their university or their local places.
Yeah. So a couple different things on that. So one, you need to be on LinkedIn. Even if you don't think you need to be on LinkedIn, you need to be on LinkedIn, because a lot of times LinkedIn's database of your university alumni or whatever, a lot of times
Mhm.
LinkedIn's database is better than the university's alumni database itself. So if you're lucky enough to have a university that has a really strong alumni center or database or record, by all means, go and ask them or look for that, or even pay a small fee for that if they charge. But so much is going to be available to you on LinkedIn. Here's the secret about LinkedIn that almost nobody talks about. Like, even a lot of recruiters don't realize this. You do not have access to every single person that's in LinkedIn database. Here's how you get access to as many people as possible. LinkedIn only shows you people within 3 degrees of you.
Mhm.
So first degree of you, someone you already know; second degree, someone that knows someone; and then third degree, someone that knows someone, whatever. Now, so if you're not connecting to everyone that you know, that additional university alumni might not be showing up. So connect to everybody you know. I would emphasize that over connecting with new people. Second thing, and this is the other thing that almost no one's talking about. I don't think anyone's talking about this. I only hear myself talk about this. You want to join, you want to max out the number of LinkedIn groups that you're a member of. Not because I want you to read the post, not because I want you to post stuff in there, simply because that's the exception to the third degree rule on LinkedIn. If they are in the same group as you, then they will show up in your people search result. So join multiple groups from your university, particularly the large ones. Join multiple groups for your university. Join multiple groups for your industry. Join multiple groups for your field. So your department: software engineering, software development, technical product management. So doing all of that will maximize the number of university alumni that show up. And that part. So those would be like the big super secret things. And tell me what I missed. What do you want to talk about for the rest of our call?
I think you said one more thing is counselor. They can reach out to the counselor in the university that they went to. They typically know people who have been a student and where they're working, and they can help you connect.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that, because that's a pretty big piece. So one, even if you have graduated, but you're within 1 or 2 years of graduation, there's a strong chance that your university's career center, it might be called something slightly different, but most of them are called something related to career center, reach out and talk to a human being and let them know what types of alumni that you're looking for, and they can help you figure that out. And if they like you enough, they might even make introductions for you. So that's one route. The other route, and you can do this as a student, as a fresher as well, but alumni of all ages can do this. You can also reach out to the Alumni Center or the Alumni Association of the university, and you can ask the same question. And some of them know vice presidents and directors and whatever that they might be willing to introduce you to. And then last but not least, this is going to, particularly for people that are recent graduates, because your
Mm.
professors are a
Yeah.
gold mine, and almost nobody asks their professors for help. Now, if you never spoke to your professor during school, it's going to be a little bit harder, but you could reach out to your professor. I've reached out to my professor the last week of school, and I've asked them for help. Would have been better if I did it earlier, but I still got a lot of benefit out of it. So send a message to your favorite professor, particularly in your field, and say, hey, I really enjoyed XYZ class. I particularly like what I learned about A, B, and C. I'd love to have a brief conversation with you and get advice about my career. And then once you get in that conversation with them, and it
Hmm.
again could be in 20 minutes or less, could be in 10 minutes or less. And they're like, oh, that student really liked my advice. That makes me feel good. And then you can say, hey, I want to get advice from more people that work in software engineering. I want to get more advice from people that work in technical product management. Do you know anybody? And then the professor is going to introduce you to their best students who are senior managers, directors, and vice president.
I will try to translate one of the Hindi saying into English, but saying is something like this: you don't dig a well when there is fire.
And
You start digging it way before. So when you're in college, like you said, build a LinkedIn profile and start connecting with people, and then have the relationship with so many people, so that when you really need the help, you can reach out to many of them.
yeah, that reminds me, I very rarely talk about this. The first book I ever read about networking, I think I was 18 or 20 years old, is called Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty. Dig Your Before You're Thirsty by Harvey McKay. It's about a guy who didn't even, I think he barely graduated from high school. He didn't go to college,
Mhm.
and he worked his way up to vice president and eventually CEO of his own company. So if you're nervous about networking and you're like, I don't know if this will work for me, get that book, because it'll be like, wow,
Yeah.
I can't afford not to network. Dig Your Well Before You're Thirsty by Harvey McKay.
All right. We'll add it to the show description. So let's take this to the finish line. Before we leave this topic, I wanted to quickly cover. So the candidate does XYZ, and now they have the interview. And obviously, we can talk about 100 different things about how to do well in the interview. So we won't cover
Uh-huh.
everything, but there's one question that comes all the time, and
Uh-oh.
that's super critical, that also goes with your clarity, is tell me about
Uh-huh.
yourself, right? That question will come up, and that's set, sometimes it set the tone for rest of the interview. So I wanted to touch that before we move forward.
Yeah. So with anything with an interview, we want to try to create a wow experience. Even if you don't think it's an important question, however you start the interview is important and can be the difference between you getting the job or not. So I want to wow them with why they should hire me. I want you to wow them with why they should hire you as soon as they ask that question or the first question that comes out of their mouth. So a couple tips that will help you with the tell me about yourself answer. One, I want you to put in parentheses or write it at the top of your notes in relation to the specific job title and job and company that I'm interviewing for. So it's going to be like this. It's not tell me about yourself that they really want to know. It tell me about yourself in relation to the specific job title and specific company that you're interviewing for. Your answer and the quality of your answer will change dramatically if you change the question to that in your head. So that's one piece. So for me, that's a 1 minute summary or a 45-second summary in terms of what job title am I applying for? Why am I a great fit for it? Hopefully you did that analyzing multiple job descriptions and you said, hey, these 3 to 5 things seem to be most important. And I'm good at 3 of these 5. And so those 3 that you're good at that are most important, that's what you're going to talk about with your tell me about yourself answer. I have never had one client that tried this approach. And again, I've worked with thousands and thousands of people. I've never had someone that didn't have a lot of interview success by taking that approach.
Thank you.
Great question.
Awesome. So let's take this home. I wanted to ask last three questions, and I wanted to start with, is there a question that I did not ask, but you want to answer?
I can't think of anything. Your questions have been fantastic.
Thank you, my compliment. Is there a question for me?
Oh, I probably have 37 different questions for you. So what did you hear today? What did you hear today that you don't think people talk enough about that is most important? I'm curious what piece of advice you found most valuable.
Personally, for me, I did not know that joining the group, LinkedIn group, will allow me to access more people. I did not know that. The other thing which was super crucial for me, and you told me before a couple of months ago, is to how you can tap into your universities. And anybody who have a conversation with me around this, I always bring this up.
I love it. Let me say a quick thing on that. A couple things regarding university alumni. I was a smart kid. Actually, I'm not even going to say I was that smart, because there are people that are smart, that are definitely smarter than me, that way better scores on entrance exams than me, way better grades than me. So you don't have to be traditionally successful at college or university to use any of the stuff that we're talking about. All you need to do is have a degree and have a connection to the school, because the alum wants to bond with you emotionally over that. That's where the relationship is built on. I fell asleep in my first interview. I fell asleep in a lot of my classes. There were reasons for it, but my point was my grades weren't that good. None of that stops me from reaching out to vice president of really high-level companies at a young age. I use the same technique that we're talking about to meet the CEO of American Airlines. I use the same techniques that we're talking about to meet the executive vice president of American Express, the CEO of CDW. So I've met multiple Fortune 1000 CEOs through a lot of the techniques that we're talking about here. And the potential for you is tremendous.
100%. And then, as you said, it doesn't have to be a university degree. It doesn't have to be university, but sending someone a message that, hey, you and I from the same university, that an immediate bond, even though you were 2 years, 5 years apart when you was doing that course. One thing that I realized in last 2 years, I joined Ship 30 for 30, Captain Table, Build a Second Brain. Now I'm part of Ben Hardy program. What I found that if you do even a 1-day certification with 50 other people, you get some kind of bond that allow you to reach out to them and say, you and I was in the same training, and you get connected. You send frequent message. It could be once a month, once in 6 months, and that's how you build the relationship. But it is so powerful that just because you was with someone else in the same program or same university or same class, that give you a leverage to reach out and say, we have a bond.
Yeah. And that's a great example, because if we had more time, if you and I had more time together, we could talk about 37 different other bonds or associations. So I love the fact that you brought that up. I will tell you that universities where you actually got a degree, not just took a couple of courses there, I will tell you that for most people, that connection is dramatically stronger. However, if you don't have that, use what you have. And the same advice that I gave about professors, works with certificate programs or whatever. Nothing's stopping you from reaching out to the administrators of the program or the people that have been coaching you or teaching your course to say, hey, I'd love to get advice from people that work in software development or whatever field. Who do you know that you can introduce me to? So I love the fact you brought up that example.
Mike, it has been a privilege and honor to host you. Whoever is watching, just see how much information Mike has. We just talk about 37 other ways to make connections, 100 different ways to make your resume more powerful, um, 10 different ways how you can do better in your job interviews. So I highly encourage reaching out to Mike and have the discovery session with him and see if he's a good fit. Or just attend one of the Twitter space that he has been part of. So with that, Mike, thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, is there what would be your final advice to the audience?
Yeah, thank you so much for that closing and that recommendation to people. I don't think that likely. The best way to get in touch with me is simply choose your favorite social media platform and follow me on that platform, which is hopefully going to be somewhere in the show notes. So if that's LinkedIn and Twitter for you, great. If that's Instagram and Facebook, great. I do the most stuff on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, but I am on most of the other platforms. My closing advice for you would be the following. Job search is more complicated than people think it is. And if you haven't figured out where you can improve, or if you haven't figured out why you're not having more success, there is a skill gap there. And it's not a skill gap in terms of you being qualified to do the job. So a lot of times people hear skill gap and they're like, oh, I'm going to take another course. That's not what I'm saying. You have a skill gap in job search knowledge. And even if you are a recruiter, which most of you aren't recruiters, but even recruiters, there are recruiters out there that are not experts on job search. They're not. There are some recruiters out there that have not been able to find a job and they've been looking for over 12 months. It's because you don't realize that every part of job search is a different skill set. Learning how to write a better resume is a skill set. If you have not taken multiple courses, if you have not had multiple conversations with resume experts, you're not as good at resume as you think you are. Same for your LinkedIn profile. Same for your networking. Same for your interviewing. And if you want to never have a problem getting a job for the rest of your life, study job search skill sets and you're going to be successful. My clients that learn how to be great networkers, not average networkers, they are not struggling to get interviews. They are not struggling to get hired because they mastered job search skills. That's what I have for you. Thanks for having me today.
Thank you so much, Mike. This was really fun conversation and is a masterclass.
We did
it. Thank you.